Welcome back, fellow book lovers, to a realm where the lines between black and white blur into shades of morally gray. I'm Brie, and I'm joined by my partners in crime, Lauren and Maggie.
Today, we are going to be talking about a fan favorite of ours, of everybody we've talked to. It's Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It is a beautiful paranormal romance with a hint of mystery and spice.
So if you're ready to join us, hit that subscribe button for your new digital book club. Grab your headphones, settle in, and let the journey begin. Talk Fae To Me starts now.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here to talk about Bride. I think I had said this I guess this was in the group chat, but this was my first 5-star read of 2024. The Hurricane Wars really, and I might go back and change my rating of the Hurricane Wars now to be 5 stars, but Bride was just almost transformative. I feel like I started out 2024 with kind of some disappointments coming out of Crescent City, and then I was reading just like some fun little smutty romance and monster romance and just sort of more fun stuff. And I feel like Bride was the first book that I had read in a while in 2024 I actually really felt something. And I kept thinking about Bride for weeks. Honestly, I was thinking about some of the things from this book for weeks afterwards. So yeah, I really, really loved it.
Yeah, I finally am the last one to read it. Everybody else already read it. I just finished it this morning, but I really liked it. And I have to say, I am a werewolf smut stan. So to fully appreciate all of this, I feel like we need to slightly travel back in time to like 2019. Probably maybe even 2018, to be honest with you. But I, for whatever reason, did not know that smut was a thing. I had no idea that romance novels actually have spice in them. And I wonder if I still have the app on my phone. I think I do. But there were, I'm sure maybe some book lovers were maybe getting some of these ads for these different, I don't even know what to call them, but they're like apps on your phone. One of them it's called Dream, and it's literally you as a person can go and write books and publish them through these apps. And 99% of them are all werewolf books. And that is where I really discovered my love for paranormal because it's very smutty, very spicy. It's where I discovered, and it was actually sort of through this, like reading Bride, that I had an aha moment about my favorite trope when it comes to books. But I thoroughly enjoyed this because it is an elevated version of some of these app books that people write. Granted, I have read some phenomenal stories from people who have just published books through these apps versus a traditional publisher, and oh man, good. It was a 4-star for me. I have a couple grievances about my personal preferences about my werewolf novels. However, the book was great. It was lovely.
I would say 4.5 for me. I saw a comment on Goodreads and it made me laugh. It was like Ali Hazelwood does it again. And I never read anything by her like before this. So I really had like, minimal expectations, just that Lauren had read the book and liked it. But then I saw that and I was like, that's funny. I like it. And it totally was a hitter for me.
I've never read another Ali Hazelwood book. I've seen her work all over BookTok. I'm just not a modern romance reader, so I had seen her books. I'd seen that they were really getting boosted. I was at Costco months ago, and they had copies of, I think it was Love Theoretically, and I had picked it up, and I really was going to buy it, but then I was like, "Oh, I don't really have room on my shelf, and I'm not really a modern romance reader, but I'd heard so many good things about her writing." And so I was on Goodreads in December, and they had a thing pop up that was our most anticipated books for 2024. And so I was scrolling down the list to see like, oh, is there anything on here that I might like? And there were a few, but one of them was Bride. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I've heard so many amazing things about Ali Hazelwood. I just haven't read her books because I am a fantasy romance reader, not really a modern romance reader. And this looks like it might be up my alley. And people say she's good. So I hopped over to Libby and I placed a hold on Bride so that when it came out, I would automatically be on the list. And I guess I got there pretty early for my library because I was able to download the book pretty soon after it came out. And like I said, at the time I was in just sort of like a bit of a reading slump. And so that came up and I was like, you know what, let's just give it a try. Maybe this will get me out of the slump. And man, I was so genuinely surprised by how much I liked it. I feel like I haven't really seen too much of the modern romance writers delving into more fantasy or in this case paranormal romance. And so I was really unsure of how it was going to go, but yeah, reading this book, I am now tempted to go read Ali Hazelwood's modern romance for sure because I enjoyed her writing style so much.
And this is a disclaimer. If you have not read Bride, please go read it and then come back and join us. We don't want to spoil anything for you, and we probably will be discussing plot points and scenes and things throughout this podcast. So please go read it and then come back, and we would love to hear all of your thoughts, opinions, if you agree, disagree, but we don't want to spoil anything for you. So if you haven't read it, just keep that in mind. We will be discussing. So, with that, I don't even know where to start.
I read it in February. Maggie read it probably in like March, and
Yeah,
Brie
probably March.
Brie read it this morning. So if
Yes,
you
I
want to
finished
give
this
us
morning.
the quick little synopsis, I would love that.
Yeah, so the two main characters in Bride, it is a vampire and a werewolf. The vampire is Misery, which it took me a second to realize that that was her
Mhm.
name because I was reading this book on audio. And sometimes I have it sped up and it makes things pronounce weird when you speed it up, or just depending on the dialect of the narrator, it can come off. No, her name is Misery. And the werewolf's name, or the were's name, is Lo. And she is something that they call collateral for the vampires. In this world, which I thought was super rare and interesting compared to a lot of paranormal or vampire or werewolf novels, the vampires are actually the lowest on the totem pole. That humans and werewolves are both above them when it comes to strength and skills and things. That vampires are weakened in the sun. They don't have superior strength or anything like that, which I thought was really interesting. So, anyways, in typical fashion, the three species are mortal enemies, and she is something that they call collateral, where Misery's entire life has been spent with the humans. That if for whatever reason the vampires cross the humans, she would be the first one killed. And as soon as she is done being the collateral for the humans, she goes back to her nest, which is what they sort of call their coven, I would say, for her vampire family. She goes back, and her dad immediately tells her that she's going to be collateral again, but for werewolves, and she has to marry the alpha Lo of this other werewolf pack. And she goes and she does that, but she has ulterior motives. So because she has not spent any of her life with her vampire family, she's been with the humans, she developed a connection with this human girl called Serena, and Serena's missing. She has no idea where she's at, what happened to her. They got into a fight, and Serena disappeared when she was supposed to come over to her apartment, and she doesn't know. She found a piece of paper that had initials on it, and when she heard who she was supposed to be marrying, the initials matched, and she decided that she was going to go through with being the collateral, marry the werewolf alpha, to try and find her best friend who's missing. And so that is what this whole story is about. Is it's supposed to be a enemies to lovers, instead of, like Lauren said, a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a mystery. I don't really know of what other significant tropes maybe there are throughout this, to be honest. I don't know if you guys picked up on any other ones, if you've heard any other ones. The only one I know of is the enemies to lovers, maybe a bit of the fated mates.
Definitely fated mates, forced marriage,
Forced marriage. Oh yeah, forced proximity.
Yeah, the forced proximity, fated mates sort of trope. Yeah, just those typical tropes, but I would say there's also maybe some found family aspects to it, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, those are kind of the tropes that I can think of off the top of my head. But, you know, I guess we've got found family with like Lo and his sort of group, and then definitely between Misery and Serena, and later I think Misery too with sort of Lo's like band of wares, and especially with Lo's younger sister Anna or Anna. So yeah, she packed in a lot of really good tropes, and I thought that was really smart of her to go after kind of the most popular tropes within the genre.
Just right off the bat, let's just maybe go. What was your maybe favorite thing about the book? I know, Lauren, you said this was your first 5-star read of 2024. Was there something in particular about the book that made you give it such high stars?
Yeah, I think there was a surprising amount of well thought out world building for what really ends up being a rather short, sort of one off story. I thought that the way the world building was done was executed really well. And I think that Ali Hazelwood did what I personally like, which is where there's a lot of the world building incorporated throughout the story in bits and pieces instead of we're just going to drop you into this world and explain everything to you out the gate and then, you're off to the races. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I just thought Ali Hazelwood's writing was really cool. I love that she did werewolves and vampires in what I think is it's a take that I haven't seen before, and she kind of explained why werewolves and vampires exist and why they're different from humans in a way that was very science based. There's no magic. It's like, oh no, the vampires aren't vampires and blood drinkers because of magic and curses and, demons and stuff. They're that way because of a genetic mutation, and same thing with the wares. So I thought that was really cool. I liked Misery too as a character. I feel like I really understood Misery as a character. I really understood where she was like coming from. Not that I've ever been in situations like she has, but she just felt like a real person. She felt like a real fully fleshed out character to me. And so even though there was kind of a lot of internal monologuing with Misery and how she felt about the vampires and how she felt about the wares, like I wasn't bored with her inner monologue because I understood it. I wasn't like, oh my God, shut up, Misery, and just get on with the story. I feel like she just felt very real to me as a character. And obviously, I thought the romance was incredible too. I mean, for me, and I think hopefully for most readers, it was pretty clear that they were fated mates very, very, very early on in the story. It was pretty much clear to me from when Lo kind of flared his nostrils and acted very strongly to Misery's scent when she was walking down the aisle. I knew right away that they were mates. And so I feel like I always had that in the back of my mind. The tension and the romance was really building and building and building all the way through. And I also liked kind of that Lo never treated Misery like she was an afterthought, never treated Misery like she was his enemy. I mean, I feel like you could really see how much Lo wanted to protect Misery from the jump, even when they were, in Misery's mind, still enemies. So he was just a very appealing male main character for me. So watching their love story or reading it was just really, really nice from the beginning. There wasn't as much of the fighting and the pushing and the pulling. It did exist, but not to the point where it was excessive or annoying, which I feel like I've been seeing a lot lately in books, is a little bit too much fighting between the male lead and the female lead and kind of the lead up. And I felt like with Lo and Misery, they kind of got to be collaborative a lot faster.
I loved that at every chapter we would get like a little snippet from Lo, and then it would be Misery's point of view. Don't get me wrong, I love a dual point of view book. I love that it was, 98% Misery with just a little smidgen of Lo and his thoughts. And I felt like each little snippet added so much to each chapter. For like 2 sentences or however long each of them were, it really added so much more than you would anticipate. Just this little tidbit of information being.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Especially when he's talking about Misery's scent, and Misery.
Mhm.
And at this point in the book, it's just funny because Misery still thinks he's reacting strongly to her scent because she's stinky,
Mhm.
And so you're getting from Misery, she's like, oh my God, I must just smell like garbage. I need to stay away from Lo because he can smell my garbage stink. And then you get the little snippet from Lo and he's like, I want to bathe myself in her scent. And so you as the reader, it's so funny to read as the reader and you kind of knowing both sides at that point, and just to hear
Mhm.
Misery then go on and on about how she smells even though she keeps taking baths. Yeah, that was a really smart move on Ali Hazelwood's part.
Yeah. I I really liked it. There's a couple things that it's not like a dislike. I just think having such a deep love already, the
Mhm.
amount of werewolf books I have read is actually a lot. I have read quite a few. I've actually read quite a bit of them on Apple Books, that there were some free ones that people would submit, like self-publishing and things. It's a solid number. The thing that I thought was kind of weird was the green and purple blood.
Mhm.
I get where you're coming from, trying to create a difference, and that that is a way that people are able to tell. And I understand the significance because throughout this story, you discover that hybrids are a thing, and they go undetected because their blood is normal, that it's not this strange color compared to humans. But the green and the purple, I don't know, it weirded me out a little bit, where I'm just like, it sort of took me out of it a little bit, I would say, having green blood or purple blood. Because that made it seem a little too, oh, what's a good word? Maybe like whimsical. But you
Mhm.
were saying like she did such a good job of making everything seem so realistic, that to then have green blood, I was like, really?
That's a
Like
fair
it just
point.
made like it
I
kind
thought it
of
was so funny when he blushed and it was like an olive tinge to his skin.
it was thought out, but it kind of took me out of it a little bit. I'll say, like, it was just a little gimmicky to me because it's talked about a lot, but then there's nothing different about it other than the color. And I'm just like, it's just kind of, I don't know, kind of weird.
That's a fair
But
criticism for sure.
it didn't hurt the story at all. It was just kind of weird. I did really like, though, that they made such a big play on her ears, that she has the pointed ears, and that's another way that you can have vampires. And her teeth, such a big thing on their teeth, and talking about there wasn't quite a lot of him actually as a werewolf, and talking about the were thing. I would say in a
Mhm.
lot of modern werewolf and paranormal stories, like in Twilight, they can just shift on command. There is no, has nothing to do with the moon. It's all sort of gibberish, made up things of, in like the stories, you know what I mean? Of like in these novels, it's made up. That's what people think about werewolves. Um, but in this one, it did actually play into it. Everybody shifts on a full moon. They can shift out of it, but you shifting or not shifting in accordance to the moon depended on how strong you were, how powerful you were, which I thought was kind of interesting because I don't think a lot of people actually play into that anymore. And the fact that she actually couldn't go into the sun being a vampire, that she had to go and hide in a closet and would sleep all day and could not be out and about in the sun. And she just would get burned, not burst into flames and turn into ashes, but would get third-degree burns all over her, which I thought was really cool and a good way to play on existing things but made them her own still.
I do wish maybe that there had been a little bit more bloodlust among the vampires.
Yeah,
I think that
it was non-existent.
yeah, they have no, in this one they really don't have bloodlust at all. And I do appreciate for the sake of the story. But I think she could have worked in maybe just a little bit more bloodlust, or maybe an explanation as to like why they weren't bloodthirsty. But in this one, yeah, the vampires don't have any bloodlust. I did think it was cool how Ali Hazelwood sort of explained that to the vampires, drinking blood isn't something they do for pleasure or for joy. I mean, she explained it. It's like peeing. You do it because you got it, and then you just don't think about it. Because all the
Mhm.
werewolves are like so shocked that Misery's not just like wanting to rip their throats out. And she's just trying to be like, it's not like that at all. So I think Ali Hazelwood like explained it in cool ways, but I kind of wish that we had gotten a little bit more of like a bloodthirsty Misery. I think that would have been fun.
Yeah, but I will say again, like adding on to of things that exist and she made them her own, that yes, they didn't have the bloodlust, but I do think she had an interesting like add-on of why they also aren't. That when Misery and her twin brother Owen are having a conversation when she fed from Lo for the first time, he explains of like there's a reason that we moved away from that and why we drink out of blood bags and we have blood donated, because you get really attached and you build a lot of these emotional connections based off of this physical connection. So I feel like maybe it's something that she could have taken a step further, that it was sort of maybe hinting that they maybe did have a type of bloodlust back when.
And they've removed the
Yeah.
And they've like taken it away because it was really hard for them or challenging for them or whatever as vampires to like have that, and he was trying to discourage her from actually feeding directly from a person and wanted her to feed from blood bags, which again I thought was a cool play on existing things, because I don't know if I've ever had any type of vampire thing. Like again, the only thing I could reference would be Twilight, where they drank from animals instead of people to try and like tame that and be somewhat more humane.
I mean, Vampire
And this was
Diaries.
oh yeah, yeah, but like,
Yeah.
but different.
Yeah.
Yes and no. It was just, that was like a Stefan thing, because Stefan didn't want to hurt people. He was trying to be a good guy, but generally vampires were like still like you would traditionally think of a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
But it was culturally in this book, vampires no did not do that. But again, they were like bottom of the totem pole. Humans were better than vampires, which I just thought was so crazy, because in no world I feel like I've ever heard of that being a thing where the vampires are like bottom.
Yeah, and it was I mean, like, it was explained that the vampires are stronger than humans, but not necessarily stronger than the weres, but yeah, like, I think that the world building was interesting, and, like, how vampires became the lowest of the low on the totem pole, and the vampires just became a super insular society because everybody was afraid and just thought they were gross. Like, it was
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting way to do it, because usually, yeah, you'll see the vampire like, the humans are almost always the bottom of the food chain in these types of stories, but
Mm-hmm.
not in this case. And kinda all
No.
Misery wanted was just to be human, and not even because Misery wanted to be human. Misery just hated the way that the vampires were, that they're all just so cold and mean, guess, and just don't really care
Mm-hmm.
about one another like that, whereas the humans and the weres still have these, like, families and communities that the vampires just are so sterile and
Yeah.
cold.
That's
I-
a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I thought it was so, like, you could really feel like her angst of wanting that when they're talking about how the werewolves, the wares, because I guess they don't ever call them werewolves here, they call them wares. But when they're having barbecues, and she's like, no, we don't do anything. Like, there is no social gathering. The only type of social gathering we have is a strategic gathering, whether it's business strategy or war strategy, any type of strategy. That's when we meet. But other than that, we do not collect socially at all, which I thought was crazy, especially hearing it from this particular person's point of view, where she grew up obviously around humans, and you can tell that Misery is funny and she's sarcastic and she's got a sense of humor and wants to have those connections, which is just so not like her species to begin with.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that was all really and that feeds back into the strength of the connection I felt between Misery and Serena, and so I feel like I see this a lot in books, right, where you're introduced to our female main character, and we're told that she has some sort of a female best friend, somebody that she's really, really close to and cares a ton about, and as the reader, I always have a hard time because I have a hard time believing that friendship, right? When you don't sort of see it at first. And that's not what happened here. Like, I understood kind of from the beginning why Misery was so distraught that Serena was gone. I think that there was a lot explained about how Serena brought the warmth and the sense of community and the sense of belonging into Misery's life. And that made a lot of sense then to understanding Misery's motivations with why she wanted to find Serena so badly. Because that was the only person that she'd ever been able to experience a true connection with. That was the only time in her life she'd ever felt like she was part of something or close to another person. I mean, obviously Misery's family didn't care about her. So I thought that was really, really strong in the writing. Like, I'm trying to think of, I feel like we've all read books where we're just told that, oh, this is this person's best friend. And then I'm like, I've never seen them develop a friendship really at all, you know?
I think when you look at like Serena and Misery friendship too, where Misery is kind of struggles so much where she's been told by her best friend, you need to live for more than just me, whatever. And you really do get to see Misery kind of find what that like means. And she like starts to, I think she really doubts her ability to have relationships. And she's like, well, this is how my people are. And then she obviously is able to form them and forms one first with Anna and becomes so close with this kid. And she doesn't even know how to interact with the child. And you kind of watch her grow into this thing that really doubted about herself for her whole life because of how she was raised or what her culture is. And just kind of seeing that we as the reader know she cares about her friend, but also getting to see her take something she thought she wasn't capable of doing and apply it to so many more relationships and really grow through that.
And even taking that a step further of when there's like different points, because Lauren, you had said there is a lot of internal monologue and dialogue and things that are happening in behind the scenes that she'll starts defending Anna. And when she thinks she's going to get kidnapped and she's like, why am I even care? Why did I step in? Why did I do this? Where she has these instincts about these things, about caring for other people. And the whole time she was like, why would I do that? Kind of, what? Why is that happening? And she really does care for a lot of things and a lot of people. And you see her developing, like, come into that, even though it is, I feel like, somewhat of an instinct for her. She just doesn't even know what it is. Do we have maybe like a favorite scene or something from the book that really stood out to you that you have thought about a lot?
I feel like there are a few for me. I love the rooftop scene where it's Misery and Lo, and they're on the rooftop, and it's kind of one of the first times that we see Misery and Lo. I mean, usually they're sort of like banter or jokey, but I feel like when they're on the roof talking to each other is really one of the first times we see them getting close and opening up to one another and talking about themselves. So that one's definitely like one of my favorite parts. But also Lo's monologue. It's the part where Lo and Misery are talking in bed at Emery's house, and Lo is talking about his mate. And this is at this point, Misery still doesn't know that she is Lo's mate, so Misery's trying to get some more information on
Oh,
like what?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're talking, Lo is talking about how matings sort of work. He talked about it on the roof as well, but Lo's talking about how matings work between wares and how it's not always reciprocated.
Yeah.
And
I found it. It's
Misery's
right here.
like, "Oh my gosh, that's like really sad." And so the Misery's talking to Lo like, "Why are you not going after your mate then? Why are we sitting here together? Why are you here with me?"
Here.
Because at this point,
Yeah.
Misery thinks
I
that
found it.
right, I can't see, so if you're like holding it up or anything.
Oh, yes, I did. I'm holding up. I found it. But let me see where the beginning of this is. A mate is the cicada's quiet, who you are meant for, who is meant for you. And this is a uniquely ware experience that differs from human high schoolers writing lyrics on each other's yearbooks before heading to separate colleges. How? I thought that was really funny how, like, the comparison that she has of, I thought this was just the concept of mates, that it's strictly a were thing and not a vampire thing, I thought was also
Yeah.
interesting in a world where they obviously coexist, that only one species has that and that it's not the same for the other. I thought was also really cool. I might be culturally offensive, but his shrug is good-natured. I've never been a human high schooler, but the experience of it might be similar. The biology, of course, is another matter. The biology, there are physiological changes involved with meeting one's mate. He's choosing his words with circumspection, hiding something maybe. Love at first sight? He shakes his head. Even as he says, in a way maybe, but it's a multi-sensory experience. I've never heard of someone recognizing their mate just by sight. He wets his lips. Scent is a big part of it, and touch. But there's more. It triggers changes inside the brain, chemical ones. Science articles have been written about it, but I doubt I'd understand them. I'd love to get my hands on where academic journals. Everywhere has one. A mate? No, it's fairly rare. Most wares don't expect to find one. And it's by no means the only one to have a fulfilling romantic relationship. Cal, for example, is very happy. He met his wife on a dating app, and they went through years of push and pull before getting married. So he settled? He wouldn't consider it that. Being mates is not a superior kind of love. It's not intrinsically more valuable than spending your life with your best friend and getting to love their quirks. It's just different. If they are so happy, couldn't his wife be his mate? Could he have overlooked the signals when he met her? No. He stares at the moonlit water. When we were young, I was there when Cohen's sister met her mate. We were on a run. She smelled her. Suddenly went real still in the middle of a field. I thought she was having a stroke, he smiles. She said it felt like discovering new colors, like the rainbow had gained a few stripes.
Well, there was that part. I like that one just where they're like having that conversation. But no, it's like his speech when they're at Emery's house and he is saying Misery is again feeling bad because she thinks that Lowe's mate is over with the
Gabby.
vampires. Yeah, she thinks that Lowe's mate is Gabby, who's over with the vampires. And, she's like, why won't you go after her or whatever? And Lowe's like, I'm not going to force somebody to be with me. It's better if she doesn't know. And Misery says, you're just scared. You're scared that, she won't love you back. And Lowe gets angry and says, is that what you think of me? Because you think that I don't want to tell her she's my mate because I'm scared she won't love me. I'll be hurt if she doesn't love me the way I love her. And he said, you don't understand. It's kind of, it reminded me so much of the speech that Reese gives to Farrah, right? Which is just, if she even gave me the pieces, little crumbs of herself, little crumbs of love along the way, like that wouldn't change anything. I would love whatever she chose to give me, no matter what that is. And I wish that I could find the actual sentence of the book, but I cried during that part, honestly. And it's been a while since a book had made me cry because I think that we all want that kind of love, right? Somebody who's willing to want us even when we can't give 100% of our love, is willing to love us on our worst days, doesn't care if we can give them all of our love at that particular time, and is just happy to have somebody to love, So I just thought that was a really, really good part and very well written. I like that. That was probably my favorite part. And then, of course, I also liked when they're in the library and they almost get caught sneaking around at Emery's house. And then, of course, they have to do the typical book thing, which is let's just pretend we're hooking up. And yeah, there was some parts in that scene though where I had to get kind of imaginative because the way that they were describing them being in these positions, I had a hard time imagining, okay, and where's her leg and where's his hand? I couldn't really see the positioning just the way it was described. I was like, is she up against the wall fully? She's right side up, I think. But yeah, I like that scene as well. I just thought that was fun.
One of my favorite things, it's the only tab I have in the book because again, I listened to this on audio. But I was listening to this, it's very early on in the book. I was listening to it, putting my baby to bed, had to stop the book so that I would not forget this part because I thought it was so comical that I don't know how old Ali Hazelwood is, but I thought it was hysterical. So when she's having the conversation with her father and the governor about being the collateral again and marrying a werewolf, and the governor's leaving, and he waves goodbye and says, if you decide to change it, call my office. He makes the phone hand gesture, the one old people use, and I actually died because I'm sure everyone maybe has seen the different videos of talking about the way different hand gestures and things that people use, and that if you were born before 2000, you make the Y with your hand and go like this, like call me on the phone. And young kids now, because they've
Or
never
they do like the
had
iPhone.
a landline phone, they go like they hold it and make like a C with their hand to hold it up to their face. And I just thought it was so funny that that's how she described it, that she needed to make sure that difference, and that it was like this, that he was an old guy being like, call me, the one that old timers use. I thought it was so comical. It just really made me laugh, and I didn't want to forget it. I had to share.
I wish that I had highlighted stuff because there was a lot of really funny moments like that. You know, Misery is so funny. Like, as much as she's going through so much inner turmoil at the same time, she's very funny, very witty, and the jokes really, were hitting. Like, I think Ali Hazelwood probably is a millennial because a lot of these jokes I feel really landed well with the millennial audience, aka us.
But I also am going to be so honest. I do this. I don't do
Oh,
that.
yeah, no. That's what I said. Like,
I'm an old person.
you're what?
I'm an old person.
Well, I think we all are.
Oh,
I don't
doing
know,
like
this
this?
is,
Yeah,
like,
I've never once thought to hold like
well, it's because we had
an iPhone.
landlines. Like, we have
But
had
yeah.
phones that were corded. We are still among that generation, even though we're right on the cusp.
Mhm.
But, you know, we're right there.
Maybe she's Gen Z.
Maybe.
If she's
I
good.
don't know how old she is. If she's in her early 20s, then yeah. But I have a couple grievances a little bit that made it a 4-star and not a 5-star. And I have to say, I like Lo and I like Misery and their relationship, but I had saw someone else had wrote a review, and I don't agree with the review necessarily, but this one point I thought kind of got me thinking that it's supposed to be enemies to lovers. They're not ever really enemies. He is never giving any type of indication. The only thing that makes it enemies to lovers is that werewolves and vampires are supposed to intrinsically be enemies, but the two of them are not. So there's all the tension, I feel like, is kind of in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And the tension that does exist is the fact that he knew from the get-go that she was his mate and he didn't say anything, and she obviously doesn't get it because, again, she doesn't know anything about mates. But like I was saying, this book made me realize how much I love fated mates. I eat that shit up. I am here for touch her and die. And that's how werewolf stuff is, because the whole typical thing about any type of werewolf paranormal romance book is that it's two people get together and they're very territorial and they mark each other, and it's like that whole thing. And knowing that I really love that, I feel like I, as a reader, was a little frustrated that it was so one-sided. It makes sense why it's one-sided, but part of me was like, I knew it frustrated me that I could see it from like a mile away that they were mates.
Mm-hmm.
And she like didn't get it, and she was just like not understanding it. And I was like, how do you not get it? He's fucking talking about you ding dong. Like, get with the program.
You ding
Yeah,
dong.
you ding dong.
Like, what is going on? Like, it sort of was annoying a little bit to me specifically to read, just because I really love that, and I was like, come on, do it. Like, fight harder for her. If she is your mate and you're talking and you're having these really great moments and you're making all these romantic speeches and she's sitting here thinking that it's somebody else, and it's not because you forgot you made some offhanded comment to the priest at the very beginning to make sure that this would go through because you don't have any family and collateral can only be family. That's why she thought it was his mate.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was like,
I see, and
See, I would kind of disagree.
I was gonna say I feel, and
like
go ahead, Maggie.
Like, it's funny because like I feel like your big issue with Lo is something that I really loved about him, that he did not want like Misery to feel obligated to any kind of thing to him because she spent her entire life being an obligation for someone else. And so from 12 to 18, she was collateral. So she had the obligation of giving up her freedom and her life for her family. And then after that, she was like, I'll go back to the vampires. And she's like, I don't fit in. I'm going to go live on my own in the human world with just one person. And then to have, oh, well, her dad forced her to marry me. I'm not going to force her into any kind of thing, knowing that Misery would have been like, this is such a great thing for you. I guess I'll just give up my life so you can have your mate.
No. I think you're misunderstanding. I don't have an issue with that. I just wish it wasn't as evident that they were mates.
Oh, like you wish it had been more secretive.
Okay.
Yeah, that like it was so obvious that it was frustrating to me that she wasn't getting it, because then even at the end when he's like really pushing her away because he's trying to do all the things that you're saying, she's like, no, but I love you the way that you love me, like we can be together. And he's like, well, no, we can't, that whole thing. But it's like this thing that he knew from the very beginning, and I just don't feel like he did a very good job hiding it. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't want to say like more aggressive, but that there was more tension, that there was a reason that I don't even know how to describe what I'm saying, but I just wish it wasn't so clear that they were mates from the beginning to the reader, because he was doing all of those things. And I feel like it would have made it more impactful if you had figured it out later that no, he was trying to be so sacrificial and put her first because he figured out that they were mates, but you as the reader find out when she finds out. But it was so obvious that I love the fated mates. And the thing I love about fated mates is when they're both like zing, and it's always in these types of books that are fated mates, a girl who's like beaten down, treated badly by her family, never has anything, and lowest of the low gets with the alpha, and they are like this, and they are just together, and he will live and fight and die for her, and nobody's ever done that before for her, ever. And because that's what I love about fated mates, and this was lacking that, that's sort of where I was like, I wish you didn't find out until later, because I was like,
Till Misery finds out.
I was like waiting for it, and I was like, where is it? It's not there. It's so one-sided, and it was so weird. And it was, again, I understand why she did it, because she's painting the picture of mates mean nothing to Misery because she doesn't have them as a vampire. And to Lo, it's this huge thing, and he's trying not to push that on her. And I totally get that, but it was like,
God, but I love the self-sacrificing emo boy-ness
I
of the whole
know.
thing. But again, these are some of the things I love about Lo, and I think these are some of the things I love about the book. I love that we as the reader get to kind of feel and experience Lo's pain because we as the reader know what he's going through. And of course, Misery just la la la, has no understanding, like has no idea. I enjoyed that. We get to see like how taxing and rough this is on Lo and how much he cares for Misery to withstand this pain for himself, because he can't stand the thought of her experiencing the pain of feeling like she's tied to somebody just because he's her mate. So
And
I totally get
wish
what you're saying, but I don't know. I disagree a little bit.
I just wish that she was a little bit more complex, because I feel like she was a little too ditzy at times. Like, maybe that's not even the right word, but like you just described her as like, do 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 do, and he's making all these big like grand sacrificial things. And I think she's even described it at a point in the book where she doesn't know any better, where he was like, I think he had said to her, Lo had said to Misery, you have made more sacrifices than anybody else. You're one of the bravest people because you gave up everything for your family, for your species, to do this, to be the collateral. And to her, and she was like, no big deal. To her, it was just like, it is what it is, because that's just like what her life has always been. And so it literally was like it didn't even matter in a way to her.
But I think to Misery, her own life doesn't matter to her because her life's never been hers.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying, where I wish that a layer of complexity could have been added to Misery if she didn't necessarily feel like, if she made a bigger deal about it, because I don't think she made a big deal about it. I think he made a big deal about it, if that makes sense.
Which to me just shows he sees her for her. Like even when she refuses to see herself as anything but a tool for another person, Lo says that I'm not going to let that fly. You're not just a nothing tool to be used by everybody. But that's what Misery thinks of herself. But I think that was such a strong part of their love and their connection, was seeing how much it hurt Lo to know that Misery thought so little of herself, that she was just a pawn to be used by her dad, by the vampires, by everybody, and how much he refused to be part of that. And when I said Misery's like, I didn't mean she's ditzy. I just meant she's so, not even sheltered. She wasn't protected, but she has
That's what I'm
never
saying.
been a part of the vampire. I mean, she explained she was gone from the vampires basically her
Her
entire
whole
life.
life.
Yeah, so
No, yeah.
she knows hardly anything of, and you know, she says this, like, she hardly knows anything of vampire culture. She knows a bit of vampire culture. She knows the basics, but she barely knows anything about vampire culture. She knows vastly more about human culture, and even then, it's really only things Serena taught her because no other humans ever wanted to interact with Misery. They were all too scared of her. So it's not that I think she's ditzy. I just think she genuinely never learned how to be a vampire and never had the opportunity to act like a human or to learn anything about how to act, basically.
No, and no, I totally hear what you're saying, and I don't even ditzy wasn't even the right word. I feel like it could have made Misery more powerful because I feel like the only way she even realized she was powerful is because Lo was pointing it out, because Serena was pointing it out. Is like she
Yeah.
could have had these grievances about her own life, but I don't think it would have mattered to her if it didn't matter to someone else in a way, is like kind of the vibes I got in some ways. That not that it didn't take away anything, and like it obviously made their love great and all the things that Lo was unwilling to accept. I just wish that she was also unwilling to accept them, but it was kind of like, it is what it is. Like, it's just been my life. It is. And like, she could care less about vampires because she doesn't know anything about them. She didn't really care much about werewolves because she wasn't around them to hate them. Wasn't around vampires to like feel the same type of energy that they did. That it was just, could have been just a little bit more there for me, is all. That it was good, and I have it's not a negative thing.
I see what you
could have
It
been a
mean.
wasn't
little,
what you wanted.
like just could have been a little bit more, that she could have been more complex and more developed, and I think it would have just made her a little bit richer.
Yeah.
Because she just coasted, I feel like, a lot through those things because she just accepted them. And I wish she had a little bit more anger about being forced in those situations. You got it a little bit, but not really.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, you wish that she had had that moment where she decides to start caring about her life for herself instead of because Lo told her.
Because Serena needs her.
Yeah.
Serena needs her to find her, or because Lo told her.
Yeah.
Like you wanted Misery to kind of find that backbone for Misery, not because her friend is missing, not because some dude finds value in her.
Yeah, like
that's
that
a very
could have
good
been
point. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously we want him to and we want Serena to, but I just wish that she had been like, you know what? No, fuck all of this. I find value in myself, but I also get the great love. But it was kind of just not that for me. But it was still good. Still great. Let's see. Do we have anything else that we need to get? Oh, I actually have a couple other things. The very, very end at the epilogue, where his friend, is it Cohen? Is that his name? When he sees Serena. So one of the things that I find, and I don't know if you guys could tell, if you noticed, I could tell also from like miles away that Serena was a hybrid.
No, it caught me by surprise for sure.
No, I fucking called that shit out.
Totally sure. That's Serena being a hybrid. That is so funny that you caught it as an avid werewolf reader. Is that why you caught it, or am I just stupid?
No, no.
I'm often obtuse when I'm reading.
I don't know, and I wouldn't say I'm very analytical, and I don't normally get things, but there was something, I don't even remember the exact moment. Oh, no, it was...
I kind of put it together when she was looking for Liliana.
When she found out that the EL in the ELM or whatever it is in her diary or in her journal was not Lo, it was
Not
Liliana.
Lo.
I was like, oh, well then you already know that in that moment you find out that she is a hybrid. That's when you find out that Liliana is, and I was like, I bet it's because Serena is. And maybe they have the same dad.
I
That's
thought they
why.
had the same dad. I
Mhm.
didn't necessarily think she was going to be at like, while I was like, okay, they're one and the same. It was more like maybe they have the same papa.
I was like, no, there's. It's like there is something there. There's something more. And so with that, I was like, I could see it a mile away. But I hope that because this book was so well received, that she continues to write more paranormal, and we get a Serena and a Cohen, because them motherfuckers is mates.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that probably is the plan because of the way, like you said, the epilogue
Good.
ended.
Hmm.
To me, that epilogue really strongly hinted at there is another book, and it's Serena and Cohen, and they're going to be mates. That is just so funny that everybody caught it way before I did, even when it was revealed that she.
Why did you think that Serena was looking for, like, I can't, L.E. more? Like,
Oh, for
I can't think of
Anna?
what the last name is.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, what was your understanding of why Serena would be writing that name down once you learned that it was not Lo's initials?
Well, I feel like my thought was Misery's thought, which is, isn't Serena a journalist? Was she not uncovering something? Or I just thought there was gonna be something else crazy in there. It took me a very long time to, like, figure it out, and I genuinely don't think I even figured it out until Misery figured it out. I don't know why, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, it makes sense, she's a journalist. Okay, maybe she's, yeah, doing a story that has something to do with Anna."
Mhm.
Or has something to do with the hybrids, maybe. You know what? Here's what I thought. I feel like I thought it had something to do with her trying to find the hybrids, trying to prove that the weres/vampires could live in harmony with the humans, because I thought maybe it tied into her friendship with Misery of
The
tr
Were's kid, there's a
there's
baby,
a
and then we're friends. We have a human werewolf baby.
yeah.
I have a best friend who's a vampire. There is obviously camaraderie amongst these different species. Why can't we make it kind of more inclusive
Yeah.
to everybody? I
I
get what
thought
you're
it was gonna
saying.
be like a BFF sort of thing where she, was maybe writing an article or something to break the stigma where she's like, "Why have we spent all this time all hating one another? Clearly we can coexist. Just look, there's like hybrid babies and there's friendships and there's relationships that form between all of these different species. So why are we all spending our time hating one another?" That's what I thought was supposed to be the outcome. I definitely did not get that it was because Serena was a hybrid. So, that's on me.
That's okay. That's a good point, though. If you didn't catch it, I don't know. There was just something that it was in that moment when she finds out it's Liliana, and then there was another comment made later on, and I was like, she's gonna be fine. But there's one very, very important topic that we have not discussed.
The knot, yes.
Uh,
I had read one previous uh, I've never read an adult werewolf book like Brie has. I know Brie has a very long-standing history with them. It's just never something that I really sought out. But, like, maybe, like, 2 weeks before I read Bride, I read, Kimberly Lemming's That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Werewolf, and the knot is in there. So I actually did know what it was in Bride, but, like, I'm late to the party on werewolf stuff. I did not know that the knot was, like, an actual thing in werewolf romance.
It's not.
Um,
It's
oh,
so not.
no,
I
I've
have
heard it
never read
is.
a book. Oh my god. I have
Oh,
read
no, I've
so
heard
many.
it's, like, an actual trope. I
No,
guess it just wasn't in the ones you've read, but I had seen stuff
it must
afterwards
not be.
talking about how it is a trope.
Oh my god, no. I have never read any, and so I was like, this is weird. I get it, but is this normal? Because I'm telling you, I have read, I should count how many. Like, I have spent an excessive amount of money
Mhm.
on those apps buying tokens to get these freaking chapters. Like, no way, man. So many. And not one ever have I ever come across that. It makes sense. I get it because that's in like actual animals, that's a legitimate thing. So I understand the concept of it. But I was like, "Mm, hmm." But it also weirded me out of like, why was that the thing that made you think, nope, not compatible? Like, that was
I
it.
was gonna say I didn't. Maybe I'm dumb and my understanding is small, but I was like, I don't get why it wouldn't work.
Like, I don't understand why that would make them compatible.
I guess what I was thinking, like, not compatible, I thought it meant, like, biologically, like, they couldn't have a child.
I thought it was size
And
related. Misery thought Lo wouldn't fit because of that, and Lo thought he wouldn't fit because of that. I don't know if biologically the female wares are somehow different in order to accommodate that, but that's what I thought they were getting at.
because, like, yes, but the whole point of the knot is to make sure the other is impregnated. So the whole point is that it doesn't fit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm not understanding why that would make you not compatible, because even in a female wear, it still wouldn't
That's
fit.
still the point.
Yeah, I was like, that's the whole point of it. It's fine, but I was like, this is weird. It's just a little weird for me, but it's okay. Falls asleep and still inside her. How long did it take to deflate? About a half hour. I was like, it like sent me that quote said. I was like, no way.
I can hear Mag purr.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to take him away from the microphone?
Oh, no, it's okay.
I just
Just
don't.
everyone, we have a little buddy. Lauren's cat Mac has joined the pod tonight.
He has said enough is enough, and I need to be in your lap now. He's looking at me like it's bedtime, Mom. But yes, he does get up. I haven't paid attention to him in several hours now, so he is very, very upset with me.
I thought it was a great read. She was very easy to understand. Her writing is very fluid, very thought out in a lot of ways. I thought she took a lot of basic, very well understood concepts and made them her own without making them too weird. The only one I think that was a little too weird for me was the color of the blood. It just
Yeah.
that one felt like just slightly strange. But everything else, I thought she did a really great job of explaining things and just making them fit this world and her narrative. And I love their personalities. I can't wait to see more of it. I have not read anything by her before. The only hesitation I think I would have is one of my really good friends. She has read the majority, if not all, of Ali Hazelwood's modern romances. And her one complaint is that they are all basically the same thing 4 times. So I hope that if this type of series or her paranormal stuff continues, that there are some other differences and it's not like the same type of thing over and over again, because I have heard that about other books that she has written, that it's sort of the same tropes or the same themes repeated with different characters.
I mean, I'll definitely read I'll read the sequel when it comes out, absolutely. But yeah, I do hope that there is more to it, then hopefully it's not just like a repeat of the same love story. And I genuinely think that the next book will not be a repeat of this storyline, because
It's a whole different cast of characters in that this one was a vampire and our next one's a human werewolf hybrid.
yeah.
You know, like, I feel like the issues they're
And-
going to encounter are
But
going to be
I don't know, maybe
drastically
we will have
different
the
than what
same, like,
Midland
he's
did.
hiding the fact that they're mates sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but I definitely think that we'll get a lot more interesting stuff, because Serena will also be learning about the werewolves. She really doesn't know very much about them because she spent most of her life thinking she was a human. So I think that that's going to be an interesting thing to read. And, I might go give The Love Hypothesis or Love Theoretically a try after this.
For sure. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Does anybody want to talk about the fact that Lo had a buzz cut? Or no?
No.
Was everybody
I'm
okay
just
with that?
pretending
Because
he
I
didn't.
wasn't.
To be honest with you, I didn't even realize it at first. There was like one quote in the book that she had said of, oh, she ran her hand through his short hair and maybe he kept it that way because it's easier. And I was like, wait, what?
No, she says it when they're at the wedding. She's like, oh, he has a buzz cut. And I immediately was like, why?
I didn't know. See, I missed that.
Why?
I did not see that at first at that point in time. It was like later on in the book that she mentioned it, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? And it took me a second because no, they're supposed to have long, shaggy, floppy,
Yes.
gorgeous hair, you know?
A man bun.
It's just a it's
I didn't
necessary.
even like it. I like was okay
Yeah,
with shorter hair.
I
Like my mental
basically
image,
heard that
it
or
wasn't
read
long, but
that
it
and was like, no, we're
no.
not gonna go buzz cut. We're gonna go like man bun with shaved on the sides. So I just like completely ignored the fact that he had a buzz cut for most of the book, but definitely bothered me. And I was
Yeah.
like, why? Why did we decide that was the look we were gonna go for, Allie? Because I don't think that was a good choice. Maybe some girls are into the buzz cut. I have not talked to a single lady who has read this book that was into the buzz cut.
Yeah, it's very military for that, and that's not really how Lo is, and so I just don't feel like it really fit his personality.
Yeah. I understand maybe it was supposed to make us like realize, oh, he has no time to take care of himself.
Yeah, not okay with the buzz cut. No bueno. Bad news bears, bad choice, Allie. Wish you picked something different for his hair, but it is okay. We will forgive you anyways.
We love Lo anyway.
Well, I think it is about time that we wrap this up. If we have any other remaining thoughts and feelings about Bride, we will discuss them on Instagram. Please, please, please remember to like, follow, subscribe, listen to us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at Talk Fae To Me. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.